What's up, guys? Hopefully, everyone's having a good week. I wanted to make a short video and talk about consistency with a little story or analogy, and give you something to think about when we talk about. At the end of the day, consistency wins, and you got to take it a day at a time. I understand that is super, super, super cliche, but cliches are only cliches because they tend to be true, right? But I want you to picture this. Picture that you have a garden. You made a garden and you put a bunch of flowers in that garden, right? And you're like, okay, to get these flowers to grow, I need to water them. So to try to cut a corner, you think I'm just going to give them a bunch of this water at once, and then I won't have to water them again. And it's outside your house. You have this flower bed, and all day for 12 or 14 hours, you're bringing big buckets and pails of water from, say, a well, and you just keep dumping them on the flowers. You go back, you dump, you go back to the well, then you come back and you dump, and you do that over and over and over again for 12, 14 hours. And then you say, okay, I've gave them so much water, now I need to never water them again. I'm not a floral expert, by the way, but I would imagine you're probably going to kill your flowers by giving them that much water. Now, you worked really hard, right? Like you went all day, you gave it everything you had for 12 or 14 hours. Your hands were blistering, you used so much water, you busted your butt, you went super, super hard, but you end up killing the flowers, right? Now, think if just every day you went to the well once with two pails and you use that to water your flowers every day or every other day, whatever a flower needs. That's how you make a healthy garden, right? Is just consistently watering your flowers every day, every other day. You know what? I know we have a florist in here that could, correct me how often. It probably depends on the flower of the plant, right? But you understand the point of this story, right? Like you went really hard and watered and put all these water on there in one day and think, okay, now I don't have to water them again. And that didn't work. You probably killed the flowers versus water them every day, every other day, right? It's like this in your health and fitness. A lot of you, before you joined our program or just, even while you're with us, right? You think, oh, I'm going to go really hard for a week and, I'll see all these results and progress. And it just doesn't work like that. You have to consistently water the flowers every day. You can't just water them once with a lot of water and you're going to have a great flower bed. It's the same with your health and fitness. You have to plant seeds every single day and be as consistent as possible. And to bring this down from a macro story to the micro, but in speaking with a lot of you and seeing things and talking to the coaches and such, those little things over time will make a huge, huge difference. I know we've had some women here in the past couple of weeks talk about little adjustments and changes that they made, but think if like before this program where you have the habit of going to Starbucks every morning and getting a pretty, a latte with some sugar and you get like, a bagel, which is kind of a lot of calories and a lot of carbs early in the day for breakfast with the sugar. Well, maybe you make a little change because this is going to be better for you. So instead of doing that order, you just get a regular black coffee with a couple of Splendas, whatever. Well, you're probably saving yourself perhaps 400 or 500 calories every day by just getting a regular black coffee. Now, that might not seem like a huge earth-shattering thing, but I promise you, if you're banking 400 extra calories per day by not getting the usual order at Starbucks, over time, that's going to lead to a lot of progress. It's like constantly watering a plant. You're constantly saving yourself 400 calories a day that you were having for breakfast. Now, if you do that in 2 days because you didn't have the bagel and sugar latte, are you going to be down 6 pounds? No, it doesn't work like that. But those compounding things, that constant watering in a couple weeks, a month, 2 months, building that behavior change and building that habit will make a huge, huge, huge difference. All right. I'll leave you with this because I want to keep this short, and I've shared this in some way, shape, or form over the years. But kind of my last year in the corporate world, I was up for a promotion and I thought it was mine. They were actually like cutting a territory and I had covered like half the territory. I thought I had had it in the bag. I got to the final round interview, end up not getting the job. And with the managing director, I did kind of an exit interview for feedback on why they didn't choose me. And he had told me that I lack self-awareness. I remember on the call, he asked, like, I'm prepared, just so you know, I'm prepared for like, what is your weakness? But he was a New Jersey guy, kind of brash. He's like, Bo, what do you suck at? And I just froze by the way that he asked that question. It wasn't like, tell me about your greatest weakness or something we need to know. It was like, what do you suck at? And it just kind of caught me off guard. I froze and I'm like, I don't, suck at anything. Probably not a good answer, right? And that's why he told me I lack self-awareness. But, I'm 23, 24 years old at the time. And I actually peeled out of work early that day to beat traffic back downtown to my place in Chicago. And in my place in Chicago, there's a tequila restaurant or tequila bar, had really good margaritas. And this is back when I, drank. And I sat there and I had a couple of margaritas. I was like super angry, super upset. I mean, I thought this was my job. I was like looking at apartments and homes in this territory in Ohio that I thought was going to get in Cincinnati. And I'll be honest, I really didn't understand what self-awareness meant. And I was sitting there and I like Googled, like, what is I lack self-awareness. What is that? I don't even know what that is. And I looked at it and I read the definition and I'm like, this probably isn't good. So I was like, okay, I can use this to either bury my head in the sand or do something about it. So nobody the rest of my life tells me that I lack self-awareness. And this was probably 2013, 2014, and I made it a goal over the next 12 months to read over 100 books on personal growth, personal development, self-help style books. And I read, all the big names. And I remember like after 3 or 4 months, I mean, I was cranking out books. I read books when I do cardio and stuff. And like, I don't think I've read 100 books in a year since then, but I went really hard. And I just remember like 3-6 months in and stuff, I was like, I'm reading all these books. I don't know if like anything has changed and stuff. And then probably like 10 months into this, that managing director was in town for a meeting from the East Coast, from our New York office. And he was in Chicago and he took me and another guy, one of my buddies, out for happy hour. And we were sitting at a table and we were just talking about different things and stuff. And he, asked me about like, oh, how can we, penetrate this firm or, increase market share here. And I just remember this meeting I spoke for like 5 minutes. I'm like, here's what we need to do. Like when you look at this here, when you do this here, like I understand that this and that. And I just kind of like blacked out. And we ended up having a couple of drinks and I went home. And then the next day he was at the airport and he shot me a text. He's like, Bo, I just want to say like the person that I interacted with last night for a couple of hours, like 10 months ago, that job would have been yours if, you were that type of person 10 months ago. And nothing had really changed. And I didn't think I was like a different person, but reading all those books and like really developing self-awareness and just reading that many books, it helped me build like some confidence. I could pull information and understand humans and psychology better after reading, so many different books. And I couldn't really notice those changes, but obviously he did. It's not somebody that I didn't meet with him all that often. I probably hadn't talked to him in person in like 4 or 5 months at that point. And he told me I wasn't, good enough for a job 10 months before that little happy hour. But when he sent me that text, I was like, And then as I kind of reflect, it's like, I do feel a little different. I do feel smarter. I feel a little bit more well-educated. I understand, self-awareness. I understand myself better than I ever have. And I understand people and I understand now like what he meant. But if he had never sent that text, I'd have probably thought that, reading 100 books was probably stupid. But anyways, I just share, I don't know, I think it's sometimes a good story, but I just share that again too. Like 1 book didn't change my life. 2 books didn't change my life, but it was just the compounding of reading almost, over 100. I think I read like 105 books in the next 12 months after I didn't get that job. And again, it wasn't like this hockey stick. Oh my goodness, I read 1 book and my life, improved drastically. It was just is constant watering, constantly reading books on self-help and human behavior and psychology and, how to overcome self-sabotage and read books from philosophers and all. And I just, I became a better man because of it. And I wouldn't really recognize that myself unless, then he sent me that text. And then I kind of took a step back and was like, I do feel a little bit different. And I just share this at the end that that's what your health and fitness journey, looks like. Right. Obviously when it comes to your health and fitness, there's different things that you can measure versus, your mind in some ways, or a mindset shift, but you don't recognize it. You don't recognize these little changes. Like, come back to the Starbucks example. You change in your order one day, you don't think that's a big deal at all. But if you make that a habit and just order regular black coffee with a couple Splendas versus the bagel and sugar-filled latte, in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you'll start to see the difference at some point. So you just have to be consistent. Those little changes make a big difference. And I'll leave you with that. I know that's a longer story, but